Welcome to this episode of Healthy Conversations brought to you by Athens Limestone Hospital, where we bring expert insight and practical advice to help you live your healthiest life. I'm Susan Claiborne, joined by Karina Farr, and today we're talking about something that touches every family, healthy aging. Joining us are Dr. Joseph Shaw and Ashley Bales, certified registered nurse practitioner with Valley Internal Medicine. Together, they'll help us explore what it means to age well, from staying active and maintaining balance to keeping up with hydration, nutrition, and overall well being. We'll also talk about how social connection and cognitive engagement play a key role in maintaining independence and quality of life as we grow older. Whether you're an older adult or caring for someone who is, this episode is for navigating this important stage of life. Dr. Shaw and Ashley, thank you for being here today. I know it's not easy to cut time into your patient schedule at Valley Internal Medicine to be here, but we appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this very important topic. Um, Aging is something we all are going to do, and many of us are dealing with maybe aging parents as well. So, this is obviously a very important and very hot topic, I guess. Thank you again for being here to do this. So, as we kind of get started, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, like Dr. Shaw, kind of why you chose internal medicine.
So I don't know how far back you want to go, but it started, back in high school, learning about how the nervous system worked. So I was always interested in more like philosophy and psychology. So learning how neurons fire and how, from a very basic level, how consciousness works, kind of like was the spark that started the whole thing. And then it led into maybe wanting to go into neurology, and then going into finding more primary care was interesting because of the diversity of different types of cases and that sort of thing. And then in medical school, it was internal medicine, the rotation that really kind of sold me on it, because you see lots of different people. I like the adult demographic. You learn a lot from them, as much as they learn from you. And that's kind of where it came from.
Because internal medicine is for 18 and older.
It's adult medicine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know people get confused with family medicine
Right.
and internal medicine, but that is the difference, is that internal medicine is
So
adult medicine.
the classic internal medicine patient is someone who is older and has a lot of comorbidities that we organize the care of. So
Okay.
they have lots of different specialists taking care of specific problems. And a lot of times, no offense to any specialist, of course, but like they focus on their one thing, and they don't have someone who kind of oversees the whole thing.
Right.
Make sure that, certain medications aren't interacting with one another and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've been dealing with a healthy or with an aging process of a parent, and one of the comments was made about all the different medications they have, and do we really know if they're, because they come from different doctors, and so I can see where that is very important to be able to have that. Well, before we get too far down into that subject, Ashley, kind of tell us just a little bit about yourself. What kind of drew you into being a nurse practitioner and specifically working with adults at Valley Internal Medicine?
So I started my career, of course, as like a bedside registered nurse. Decided to go back to school, just personal reasons. And I'm a family practice nurse practitioner. And so I was doing more primary care, and I kind of saw a need with the older adult population. I just felt like the care was kind of fragmented, going to all sorts of different specialists. So what drew me to internal medicine was just kind of like what he talked about, was just kind of bridging that gap, kind of organizing their care.
You can see that. What are some of the most common things that senior adults seem to come to your office for?
High blood pressure,
Blood pressure,
fatigue.
high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, so like high cholesterol, general aches and pains.
Yes.
A lot of times.
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
Yeah. It's hard to live to a certain age in our environment and our lifestyle and our nutrition and so forth, and not deal with one or more of those kind of issues.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we want to talk about is kind of healthy aging, some things that we can see or we could do a little different, some things that you can suggest and kind of maybe make us think about that we may not have thought about, that kind of goes along with healthy aging or being able to live the best quality of life possible, as we get older. So, what are some of the things that you see as the most beneficial for aging adults?
Exercise. I tell my patients, you've got to keep moving. I mean, exercise is kind of the fountain of youth.
I would agree. And like I kind of I don't know, like to see things from the biggest picture possible, probably to a detriment sometimes. But what I tell patients a lot of times, and this kind of brings in like multiple aspects of the healthy aging thing, is that like human beings, for the longest time, what we would do is walk around and like look for things to eat, right? So we would always be up, we would always be walking, like mobility constantly. And then we wouldn't just have food around like we do now. Like that's such a new thing and such a foreign thing that our biology has not caught up to that at all. So this like surplus of food and a surplus of rest and comfort is why we it's why we get sick. It's why we live so long. I mean, like it's a consequence of progress, I guess you would call it. But you know, you live to the 7th, 8th, 9th decade of life, sitting and eating whatever you want all the time. Like biology is going to catch up to that. So,
What are ways that you suggest patients to stay active and move that maybe aren't like getting in a gym? What are some more like natural ways?
walking.
Just walk.
Gardening, I mean, just as simple as, getting out in your garden, go pull weeds. When you go to Walmart, park further away. Don't get that first parking spot. Just, if you're sitting at home, get a canned good and kind of, lift it. It's just simple. You don't have to go buy a gym membership.
Well, I know when, COVID came through and everybody started having everything delivered, having your groceries delivered is convenient, but I guess it does take away one of those opportunities that you have to get out and move your body. And I had not thought
I
about
always notice I get our steps when we go to Costco.
it. Of course, yes.
Walking across the giant warehouse. Definitely good.
It also gets to another aspect of like staying healthy as you age is like the social aspect. Like, because if you have everything delivered to you, you really don't have to interact with anybody if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But just even that the bit of just like going out and talking to a cashier and just saying like, hello, how are you? Is your day going okay? To another human being, like
Yeah.
it matters.
Yeah. And it gets harder for aging adults to do that because they get comfortable, or maybe they have lost a spouse that used to be the one that they got out and went with, or they have started losing some of their friends, so they don't have as many friends. And late in life, it's a little harder to make new social connections, I guess. So I can definitely see where that's a hard one, but a necessary one. Kind of like when you're talking about the exercising. What's the phrase? If you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing. And I guess that goes with the social aspect, the physical aspect, and the cognitive aspect also.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of online games and things like that now that are geared towards that being able to easily exercise your brain, whether it's word games on
Crossword puzzle.
Or do you think like doing crosswords and things?
Word games in particular.
My mama lived to be 92, and we swear it's because she did crosswords.
Yeah, it's that
She never let her mind till the very, very end. I mean, she loved her crosswords for sure, and watching game shows, a lot of Jeopardy on that. But what are some early signs you'd say for people to look for when it comes to mobility? Maybe they need to start paying closer attention and focusing in more, being more intentional with their exercising. So what is like the first thing to kind of go, would you say?
I mean, I would say, like, if someone is coming in and they already notice that, like, just doing stuff that they used to do every day, like even getting around the house, like it takes a lot more energy than that's, a pretty big red flag. But a lot of times older people aren't as forthcoming with that kind of thing. Like it's a pride issue. So like a lot of times if I see that a person's coming in and the issue is like memory stuff or like mobility things, and like a son or a daughter is like insisting that they come in with them, then that's kind of a red flag that they're going to come in and talk about something that the patient themselves is probably a little hesitant to bring up. So
What would you say to those people that are afraid to maybe talk about it or admit it? Or
well, I'd say that it's our bread and butter. Like it's what we do day in and day out.
And we can kind of give them the tools and resources to help improve.
it's not as shameful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the earlier you can kind of catch it and help it, the better outcomes they'll have.
And I think you see, of course, I guess we name it more now, depression and things in older adults because they are frustrated or um, they lack that motivation. They're not having to get up and go to work every day, or their kids are not depending on them and things like that. And so they feel like they don't have that purpose, maybe. And so it's easy to just sit and not do things. Do you see that more with older adults, that there's a little, I don't know, whether it be anxiety or depression or mood?
Yeah. I felt like a lot of my patients have depression. I just think they sit at home and they're lonely, and they're not having that good social interaction. And I just think as human beings, we're not meant to be isolated. We need that social interaction. And I think COVID kind of made that a little bit worse. People are fearful to go out, and now I still kind of see that. They don't want to go to the grocery store.
Kind of normalized it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and people lost their Sunday school classes and they lost their card playing groups and some things like that during that time frame, and just haven't really built those back up.
They'd love to be a lot more intentional about it now.
Yeah, and if they're not feeling good, which aches and pains, and they don't want to get out and go do stuff. So
Yeah. It's hard to know what, because it's so easy to just say, well, they're getting older, so I know as a child it's hard, and even now at my age, it's hard to know which one of those things are an aging issue that just I'm getting older because it happens. But the same thing with like my mom is, her hurting in the morning when she's getting out of the bed. Is that an aging issue, or we need a new mattress, or, there's something else that's needed there? So that's what's hard, is to know when to keep pushing for an answer. And I think that's sometimes why, kids show up at a doctor's appointment with a parent too, is it's hard to know, are you pushing them, or do they really have
right.
have an issue that, is limiting them or to be addressed. So, but I love your take on the when a child shows up with your patient, you kind of know. I hadn't thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
We talked about physical health and mental health. Let's talk a little bit about the nutrition side of things. Because we know we talked on previous episodes about diabetes and in the South particularly, and our diet, maybe sweet tea and sun drop, whatever. Would you suggest some easy, tweaks people can make to their nutrition in order to age more healthily?
I mean, the sugary drinks are terrible. Like
Yeah.
there's not even really a smallest amount that is okay. Like it, I mean,
Going back to my mama, her thing was Mountain Dew.
Oh,
Yeah. Always had to have it. So yeah, just sugary drinks definitely seem to be
as far as like an easy switch, that's just, yes or no, hard no all the time for sugary drink. But everything else, mostly, there's more nuance to it because, like dessert, you can have dessert. It's just portions and frequency.
Moderation,
Yeah.
I find nutrition's difficult with aging parents. And I kind of have two different sets of issues to look at, but one, they don't cook as often, especially if they're having to cook for one.
Mhm.
They don't cook as often, and so that's hard. And then oftentimes their appetite is just not the same, and so they wanna make a sandwich or they wanna eat soup, and a lot of times both of them are very high in
Sodium.
sodium. And so that causes its own set of issues, and so I know we've kinda struggled with, trying to find a fix for that, and I know there's a lot of meal plans out there that we kinda started looking at. I don't know if y'all have seen those or have come across those. Mom's Meals and some different places like that where you can get the meals are kind of already done, where all they have to do is kinda heat them up,
Yeah.
and we tried going down that road too, just 'cause, again, if they're not cooking, trying to get them something more than just a Jack's hamburger
Yeah.
or a bowl of cereal or something like that. So, um, what is kind of because they are eating less, what are kind of some guidelines for older adults to get the nutrition they need when their appetite is not what it used to be?
I definitely think trying to stay adequately hydrated, as we age, our thirst receptors kind of decrease. And also, they're on a lot of medicines that can also dehydrate them. So, trying to, stay hydrated, I think, is key.
Especially in this Alabama
The
summer.
heat, yes. Oh, I see a lot of dehydration in the older population.
And I didn't think about that with the medicines that they
Mhm.
take.
Yeah, diuretics are definitely because they urinate the fluids, so we need to replenish orally.
Well, and when you say that, I mean, I know what UTIs are kind of something that's real prevalent in
Mhm.
older adults. And is that primarily because they're not taking in the fluids that they need?
Well, it can make it worse.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are there any specific vitamins that you tell patients to take a lot that you see people lacking?
D
Vitamin D. Yeah. Get outside.
and B12. A lot of people are B12 and D deficient.
I won't be mad at any patient who takes a multivitamin.
Yeah.
What's the benefits of the vitamin D and the B for?
Well, vitamin D is bone health.
Mhm.
Because as we age, they lose their density, especially in women after menopause. That's where you get osteoporosis. That's why we screen for it, and treat it pretty aggressively because, yeah, if you let the osteoporosis go long enough, then just walking, you can break your hip.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have a big fall or a car accident or anything. You can just have what's called a pathologic fracture, where you're just doing normal activities and you break a bone, and that can have obviously real big downstream consequences.
I was gonna say, then you have the snowball effect
Yeah.
because you're not as active,
Mhm.
which,
Mhm.
you lose that opportunity to exercise as much. So, yeah.
And that's why it all kind of ties together. So like the vitamin D supplementation helps with that because that is like the scaffolding for the bones, but then you have to stimulate bone production,
Right.
which is why we have to walk. It has to
Yep.
be weight bearing exercise.
Yep. Especially in your postmenopausal women.
Well, I have recently kind of picked up pickleball, and I have been extremely surprised at the ages of the group of pickleball players.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, 70s, 80s, older that are out there playing pickleball. And I just love it because I just think, man, just to be able to get out there and want to do that, I think is just so great.
It's a social benefit.
And it is.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's a social
Yep.
benefit. Yeah. If you follow any of their social media, you see the numbers of people who are out playing in the mornings and in the evenings. And so it's definitely, yeah, that
It's great.
provides that social
Yeah.
aspect as well. So, not many sports that you continue to play that
Yeah.
late in life. So, I think that's pretty cool. So what do you let's go back to the memory part and the cognitive piece. So we all start getting forgetful, and we all hit those moments where we kind of, I think, wonder, like, is there something wrong with me, or is it I'm just aging, or is it I got too many tabs open in my head? So kind of what's kind of that guideline? How do you know the difference in a real issue versus you just need to take better care of yourself, so to speak?
I would say, without getting too far into the weeds of like the different types of dementia and cognitive decline and things, like the first sort of things to go in the most common type of dementia, which is Alzheimer's dementia, is your working memory. So like a short-term memory. So, uh, spouses and children and people that are close to the patient will say that it's like you talk to them, you say something, and then it's like in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
Like they can't remember. They can remember things from 20 years ago very well, and their social like graces are still very much intact, so they can still maintain like relationships and all these sorts of things superficially. But then it's like if you ask them to remember a phone number or to go get groceries or something, they will just forget it immediately. So if that type of short-term memory is starting to go consistently, then that would be kind of a red flag for me.
It would be like repeating the same thing in a conversation.
And I also
Yeah.
think, if if they've always been able to manage their finances, write checks, if they start to forget how to do that, turn on their computer, stuff that they've always done day in, day out, to me, that's also another red flag.
So not necessarily when I just walked from one room to the other and forgot what I was going in.
You forgot, that milk, that.
Yeah, that's
What are things we can do to work on the brain health?
Well, you had mentioned having too many tabs open. That was metaphorical, but I think literally, like cutting down on screen time. I mean, we do that for children a lot because they're early in neurodevelopment, but like the negative effects of having too much rapid fire stimulation, I mean, you're gonna have bad outcomes with that no matter what your age is. So,
Whether that be computer or video games or
Yeah. And not like what you talked about earlier, the games. I think that's really beneficial for older adults. Crossword puzzles, even board games.
We played board games this weekend at my mother's 80th birthday. So
I mean,
something that makes you like have to retain some information and plan ahead a little bit.
yeah.
very good.
strategy games.
To a point, I don't think great grandma's going to be playing Risk.
Yeah.
She might.
Well, what are like if you were to give somebody 3 tips kind of in order to kind of maintain kind of healthy aging, what would be the 3 kind of go-to things that you would tell them are the most important?
Stay as physically active as you
Mhm.
can. Stay as mentally active as you can, and stay as socially active
Yep.
as you can, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Stay connected, stay active, eat healthy.
And I think a lot of people think of the physical side and may not think of the social side of it too. So I think that's really important to touch on.
I mean, we can give all these recommendations all day, but it's like you have to have time for yourself. You can't just be like hyper social and hyperactive all the time. So like you need time to process things and be alone, but it's like when you start to withdraw, I think that's when the problems start to creep up.
Yeah, and I think that's hard, with aging parents, and we're busy. We're busy with our lives, and, we try to check in on them regularly and try to include and do things, but sometimes they just don't wanna, and that's hard, when you're kind of like, "Okay, we're gonna go out to eat dinner tonight," and they're just like, "No, I don't really feel like getting out tonight," that's hard because it's important, but still they're your parents, and so it's not like my children where I could make them go, so that does make it definitely more difficult, when they just don't feel like doing it,
Yeah.
so
Are there any local community resources or wellness programs or anything like that? We talked about pickleball. Is there anything else you refer patients to, whether it's social, physical, mental, any of that?
The wellness center in Athens, they have silver sneakers, so which is great. And I actually think some Medicare plans will cover the gym membership. So I know they have like low cardio classes. I think they have some weight classes for them, and it's mainly for people 65 and older.
Yeah, I think the wellness center's been doing that silver sneakers for a lot of years.
Yes, they have.
You have a large clientele that
Mhm.
would be considered your senior adults for that reason.
Yeah,
And they have a great walking track.
they do. And
Easy to get
I
in.
think the Council on Aging has some stuff at the senior center because I know I have a patient and she line dances on Tuesday and Thursdays. So, I mean,
Whatever.
yeah,
Physical activity,
Yeah.
social.
And I do think our senior, we participate as the hospital, we participate in some of the health fairs and things that they put on for the seniors. And they do a good health fair. And I know that they have different senior centers that do get together and do meals or play games or things like that, that also help provide that social aspect. Just recently, a friend who's caring for a parent in their home, we were actually having that conversation about, when it's the right time to maybe take them to somewhere else to live. And the biggest reason was that social aspect because they're always gone. And so he's there all by himself. Whereas if he was at a facility of some sort, he would have that social aspect that he
Yeah.
doesn't have right now.
I think they keep them pretty busy.
They do. They do. They do keep them very busy and help, which is, like you said, it's good. That social, that
Yes.
cognitive, that
Mhm.
getting out and just walking to their different areas that they need to go. Whereas a lot who are staying at home are not getting that.
Right.
Like getting that.
Just on a closing note, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling like maybe they're too far in life, it's too late to make changes, they don't want to make the changes at this point? What would you tell them if they're feeling a little discouraged about that looks like a lot to do in front of them and they just don't even want to bother?
I mean, everything's kind of case by case because if someone was saying that in particular to me, I would want to know what exactly they were thinking was too much. Because
Just a lifestyle change.
if they're thinking that like just walking is too much, then maybe they are depressed, like getting into that whole like geriatric depression space. Because that's a whole nother way of assessing that. But if it's just sort of your run of the mill person who's like, I don't understand how all this works, I don't know anybody, that sort of thing. I would say start small. Like, you never know what will happen if you just go for a walk, like in your neighborhood. You might run into someone that might be a friend, that might be a point of contact, might go to church with that person. You just have to take the first sort of step.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And if all else fails, get a pet because they kind of make you have to do that stuff. So
You'll get hyper social because you'll be like, can someone take care
Of the
of
stuff.
this dog? You'll make all sorts of friends.
my mom does call me from time to time and has that exact same thing. She'll say, "You're going to have to come over here and get Yogi. He's not happy with me today." Well, good. Well, thank y'all so much for coming on and talking to us about this. Like I said, it's definitely something we all deal with. If not now, we will deal with it at some point. And it's a struggle because, we love our parents, we love our older adults. And if we're not in their shoes, sometimes it's hard to understand what it takes to keep them encouraged. But like you said, staying active socially, mentally, definitely can allow them a healthy life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank y'all so much for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healthy Conversations, and a special thanks to Dr. Shaw and Ashley Bells for sharing their expertise and reminding us that healthy aging is about more than just physical health. It's also about staying connected, staying sharp, and staying engaged. Simple habits like staying hydrated, eating well, moving your body, and nurturing your relationships can make all the difference in staying independent and thriving as we age. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Athens Limestone Hospital on social media and subscribe to Healthy Conversations for more expert advice and community stories. I'm Susan Claiborne. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with more healthy conversations.